Next on WMFE's This Week, a new multi-million-dollar plan to combat homelessness in Central Florida, why a regional commission thinks it's worth the investment. Plus, you've seen their special effects in Titanic and Spider-Man 2. Now they're setting up shop in Orlando. Is Hollywood East back in business? And in our Decision 2008 coverage, early voting starts Monday. One man's effort to engage young minority voters and what you need to know before heading to the polls. That's next on WMFE's This Week. In-depth news about our Central Florida community. This preliminary report says a lot of money and enduring leadership are the keys to solving the growing problem of homelessness in Central Florida. Hello, I'm Jerry Eisinger. This week, members of Central Florida's Regional Commission on Homelessness presented preliminary findings of their work. Their recommendations come in the form of what they call action steps in 4 key areas. First up is housing. Prevention of homelessness and self-sufficiency programs are next. Then there's creating supportive systems like case management, transportation, mental health treatment, and substance abuse counseling. The final action area is healthcare. The Commission says it will need more than $500 million over the next 10 years to achieve its ambitious goal of ending homelessness altogether. As WMFE's Brittany Shane reports, it's a large cost to tackle, an issue in which every Central Floridian has a stake.
Neil Allen has lived and worked in Kissimmee for more than 15 years. He's seen the growing effects of homelessness firsthand.
Well, I've been in this area since '91. I've come in and we've had people sleeping right in the bushes right next to the building between us and the neighborhood. That's one location. I've had them sleeping in the back and on the side, and then a lot of times they'll be just hanging around all day.
And all day, he says, they pose problems for him and his company.
So they'll do their business. Well, that becomes extremely unsanitary, not something I enjoy having to clean up.
He's not the only local who thinks homelessness is a big issue. According to the Central Florida Regional Commission on Homelessness, 62% of people across 3 counties said it was a problem. While Allen tries to stay sympathetic to those in need, he says it's often hard.
Sometimes I've tried to say, folks, you know, go ahead, stay here. I'm not going to try to kick you out, but you need to understand, keep it clean. And when I come back and the garbage is there and everything I've mentioned, that's when I get a little bit upset and I say, out of here. I said, don't even come back or I will call the law.
Customers who try to do business with Allen also encounter homeless people.
And I've had people from the business behind walk out and stumble across somebody who's sleeping in the cardboard and you don't know if they're dead. That's another story. But anyway, you don't always know if they're dead or sick. So it becomes a little unnerving, and when customers come in, it makes it very uncomfortable for them the same way if somebody's sleeping there or of that type of nature.
Many people agree with Neil Allen that homelessness is a serious problem. That's why the Regional Commission on Homelessness was formed, and that's why they met at City Hall to discuss their recommendations on how to tackle this issue for the next 10 years.
And the issue of homelessness is a regional problem, requires a regional solution.
Tracy Schmidt is Chief Financial Officer for CNL Bank, which is headquartered in downtown Orlando. In his spare time, he's also the volunteer chairman of the Central Florida Regional Commission on Homelessness. He says his involvement demonstrates the type of public-private cooperation it's going to take to solve the homelessness issue across our region. He also says that this should not be underestimated.
On any given day, there are between 3,000 and 4,500 people who are homeless in our community, and as many as 8,000 to 9,000 each year experience homelessness. So this is a very pervasive issue that goes all throughout our community.
So pervasive that the major governments in our region partnered to form the commission. Members include representatives from Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, plus the city of Orlando. The partnership grew out of an earlier effort spurred by Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer and Orange County Mayor Rich Crotty.
We started last June. We did 7 months of intensive field work to study the issue, and we're now coming back with the draft of our recommendations. Once that draft is approved, we will then begin a 30-day vetting process in the community, asking for input and feedback from the different constituents across the community, and then hopefully go final with our recommendations in the middle of February.
The commission says it needs $110 million, plus an additional $50 million a year over the next 10 years to reach its ambitious goal of ending homelessness in Central Florida in the next decade. Which might sound like a lot, but it's just a fraction of the $2.7 billion the commission claims was spent trying to solve the problem in 2006 alone. Even so, local governments have yet to agree to the proposals.
I wouldn't commit them to say that they're going to adopt in unanimity our recommendations. They haven't had the benefit of seeing them yet, but that's the process that will ensue from here.
While that process takes place, grassroots groups are on the front lines fighting to fulfill the needs of the homeless. Here at Woodbury Presbyterian Church in East Orange County, volunteers run a food pantry.
What we serve is a day's worth of food. We give them a bag that has canned goods mostly because about 35% of our recipients are homeless.
While Schmidt and the rest of the commission applaud these efforts, they are hoping to solve the problem, not just treat it.
Well, those issues of food not bombs, really, those are dealing with superficial symptomatic issues of homelessness. Those aren't issues dealing with the root cause of homelessness. There's just a tremendous breadth of the provider community, both public and private entities, that spend every day dealing with this issue. So we tried to tap into the collective wisdom of those different groups and come back with a series of recommendations that we think would make a significant dent in the problem of homelessness, and over a 10-year period give us a shot at ending homelessness in our community.
A community which includes people like Linda Lackey. She's not homeless, but she says we all may be closer than we think.
Everybody is 1 week away from being homeless, one paycheck away.
Living on the poverty line, Linda says programs like the food pantry provide vital assistance.
I live with my husband. I'm disabled. My husband works, so he's the only one with the income, and so we come here to get a little help with the food. Helps my husband out a little bit, you know. And then I pick up some of the homeless people and bring them with me, being I have a car and they don't, you know, so they can get some food and just try to help them out the best I can.
Lackey is the type of person that the commission wants to prevent from becoming homeless. According to their report, prevention would be a major focus if a permanent commission is established.
We need to break down the stereotypes of homelessness. These are people who we need to have a network in place to help them as they move into homelessness to quickly return to self-sufficiency. One of the stereotypes of homelessness in our community is that, oh, that's a downtown Orlando problem, so let Orlando fix this. The fact is, and I can show you maps of the homeless in the 3-county area, there are homeless camps in all 3 of the counties.
In fact, according to the commission's report, the problem does stretch across the region. They found more than 4,400 homeless people in Orange County, more than 1,500 in Osceola, and close to 1,700 in Seminole County. Schmidt says the problem is a regional one, but forming a plan was only step one.
Planning's the easy part. We've done the easy part. The hard part is implementation. Number one is we need a plan. We think we've taken a good shot at that. Number two, it has to be regional in scope. We have to stay focused on this issue across the region. This is not a city problem. This is not an Orange County problem. It's a region problem. Third, we need to have a permanent commission. And fourth, that permanent commission needs to be made up of the A team.
The A team he refers to is the team he says it took to get things like the venues and the medical city in place.
Citizens in our community for decades to come are going to be known as the leadership and the citizens that were in place at the time when the venues went in place, when the medical city got approved and put in place. But is that the only part of our legacy we want to be known for? That is, in my mind, a one-sided legacy. I want us to have, as a community, and I want as a person to have a legacy that also is known for our compassion and for our caring. And here's the chance for us to do that.
For WMFE's This Week, I'm Brittany Shane.
Once the commission finalizes its plan and recommendations, it will present a report to local government leaders in the Metro Orlando area. Public forums will also be scheduled. For more perspective on the issue, we turn now to Dr. Jim Wright. Dr. Wright is a sociologist at the University of Central Florida who's been researching the causes and effects of homelessness for more than 2 decades. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So ending the problem of homelessness in 10 years, is that a realistic idea?
It seems awfully ambitious, but then on the other hand, there are 250 or 300 cities now around the country that have embarked on 10-year plans to end chronic homelessness, and some of them are making genuine progress. So it's ambitious, but it's not undoable.
Who has found success so far? I know Atlanta is one that's
Atlanta's
really trying.
one city that's cited. Minneapolis has made great strides. Denver, I think, would be mentioned in the list of successes. Many of these plans, of course, have just recently been implemented, so it's a little too early to tell. But there's certainly a major national effort to do this.
Now, the money itself will be coming from 3 counties equally. It's Orange, Osceola, and Seminole. Hopefully, that's what they're hoping for. It'll be an equal amount of money from each county, but the problem is not equal in all 3, and from the city of Orlando as well. Is it fair to expect them to all share the burden equally?
Well, every study that's been done of the homeless problem in Central Florida since the late 90s has concluded that it is truly a regional problem, not just a downtown Orlando problem. So I think it's not unreasonable to ask that all of the entities in the region contribute a fair share. Whether that's an equal share across the board, I think that's something that will be decided through a series of political negotiations.
And they're asking for a pretty significant amount of money. Will they still need to lean on volunteers to help a program like this find success?
I don't think any city has been truly successful without organizing and mobilizing a volunteer effort. So that will certainly be true here in Central Florida as well.
Is there anything in the report that should be included that's not there presently?
I think, given the amount of time that the Regional Commission has had to do its work, they've come up with a very comprehensive document. I think anybody could nitpick on a detail here and there, but as a roadmap to get us from where we are to where we'd like to be, I think it's pretty comprehensive and pretty well done.
And Dr. Wright, it's such a huge undertaking. Where will they face the biggest challenges?
Well, I think the biggest challenge, pretty obviously, is in raising the kinds of monies that the Commission calls on. To address the problem.
And the money itself, they're hoping will come from taxes, it will come from private corporations, philanthropy, whatever.
From government.
Which is the most ambitious?
Well, I think the most ambitious is asking the political jurisdictions to greatly increase their commitment of resources to the homeless issue. I think the philanthropic organizations are standing by ready to help out, but government really has to take the lead.
Dr. Wright, thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Pleasure is mine.
We've heard different perspectives on this issue. Now we want to know what you think. Send us an email via the website, wmfe.org/thisweek, to share your thoughts. We'll air your comments on next week's program. Next, a major boost to a booming industry in Central Florida, how some movie magic could diversify our local economy. This week, a new studio with some ties to the world's most successful movies officially opened its doors in downtown Orlando. Vicon Entertainment's House of Moves now has a facility housed in UCF's Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy. The facility is what's called a motion capture studio. It's where movie makers generate lifelike movements for characters and special effects for movies and for video games. House of Moves helped produce the special effects for blockbuster films like The Polar Express, Titanic, and Spider-Man 2. For more now on the impacts, we turn to Susie Allen of the Metro Orlando Economic Development Commission. Allen's focus is bringing more film and digital media production to our region. Also joining us is Ben Noel, director of UCF's Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy, where this new facility is housed. Thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you, Jerry.
Susie, let's start with you today. What are the economic impacts of the House of Moves?
Well, House of Moves opening a studio not only in Orlando but Florida. It will have a huge impact on the community. They have added a piece of the entertainment infrastructure that never before existed here and doesn't exist in Florida, and will probably be a showpiece for the East Coast as far as motion capture goes. So it has opened up whole new doors for us to go out and pursue in the entertainment industry.
And Ben, where will we see some of the work that's created at House of Moves?
Well, you'll see it in commercials, you'll see it in They're a motion capture systems company actually out of Oxford, England, and they build the cameras and they use the shoots and the stages because they know how to best commingle with the entertainment and do research and development with James Cameron, Robert Zemeckis, and many other scientists to make what you see as cutting edge, and which seems to be progressing every 3, 4, 5 years. You just see unbelievable stuff on the screen.
What other ways does this connect to different industries? I know this could reach. I think I've read the medical field, actually.
Absolutely.
This could reach too.
In fact, we overheard a doctor at the opening on Monday. She is an orthopedic surgeon talking about the visualization of patients with extreme rheumatoid arthritis. Wouldn't it be, if it's not already capable, to map a person that suffers an extreme pain and arthritis and then be able to watch them walk and actually map on their body where their most troublesome spots are, and then as a doctor to be able to go right to the problem areas.
Has anyone said that this is something maybe we shouldn't do?
So far, I haven't heard anything. No.
No, the partnerships between UCF, the state, the industry, and the city have been great. I mean, we've rebuilt that whole expo facility. The whole facility now between the schools, what the state did with Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy was built now, you're probably looking at a $60 million facility that was upgraded for about 15.
Which can grow the workforce.
Absolutely.
How will it do so?
Well, for one, the school downtown, we have our film program moving down there as far as from production. We have the Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy. We have visual language. We have research going down there. We're working with more art and looking at other universities commingling in the creative village. So what you're going to end up with is a lot of energy. So I've lived in Austin, Texas, and I've been to places like Oxford, England. And when you're in those places where there's multiple universities downtown, there's just an energy.
But what about the entertainment industry itself? Will we have the work here to meet that demand?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
well, we have a lot of it now. I mean,
we do have a lot of it now.
You have Madden football. You have E.A. Tiburon.
And then we've also just come off of, I think we're in our 5th feature in a row shooting in this market, as well as a reality television series.
And the
going
films
into
that I've named so far, these are, you know, $100 million blockbusters. Do we see a portion of that money?
Sure. I mean, I think it'll be touch and go. I mean, the film industry is what it is here. I think the state incentive that has gone into effect to attract this industry the last couple of years has generated a huge uptick in feature work and brought it back to not only certainly Central Florida, but Orlando, the state as well. What House of Moves will do will open up new markets and bringing new talent and new opportunities here as far as post-production, graphics, animation, you know, out of the Northeast as well as from the West Coast coming here. And these are new people that, for whatever reason, haven't worked here before. And so this is opening doors.
To see it.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Susie Allen.
We love the same old coming back, but we'd also like some new.
Have to cut you off right there. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Next on WMFE's This Week, 2008 is a big election year. How this local teacher is trying to get young minorities ready to go to the polls ahead of early voting in our primary election. In WMFE's Decision 2008 coverage, early voting for the January 29th primary election begins Monday, and just in time. A local man planned to launch a new website aimed at educating young minorities on the political processes in Central Florida. Kantana Thomas calls his effort voteorshutup.org. In the final days before the launching of his new website, Kantana Thomas met with supporters to finalize many details. He's a social studies teacher at a charter school in southeast Orlando, where he says he first noticed a disconnect between young minorities and the local, state, and national political processes.
I began to look at my classroom as a model of the community. And in doing so, I began to ask myself, if these children have this much of a lack of understanding of what it means to be an American citizen, imagine what type of lack of knowledge does the community have.
That's why Thomas is launching voteorshutup.org. The acronym stands for Vote or Survive Historical Unhidden Truths Under Politics. He's worked out of his apartment for months, setting up what he calls an unbiased look at the people who want to make decisions that affect our lives every day.
We're here to assist them not just in the local elections, but the state election as well as the national election.
For now, the site is only aimed at young minorities in Central Florida.
We're trying to reach the minorities here in the Orlando area, anywhere between that of 18 to 35, because a lot of people in my peer group, I come to find that where they want to get involved, but yet they have they have a detachment to the issues that are going on. They feel like their voice doesn't count.
Thomas adds he wants to do more than simply motivate young minorities to show up. He wants them to be more aware of the issues on which they're actually voting.
How empowered are you based on the knowledge of the issues when you actually go to the poll? Some people like to go ahead and vote for certain candidates just because they had a pretty good campaign commercial. Well, it's time for we as a community to be more knowledgeable about the issues other than what we see in the commercial.
Thomas is also hoping to give young minorities information on local elections, including 2 city commission elections in Orlando on January 29th. Over at the University of Central Florida, political expert Martin Dupuis says getting young people involved is always tough.
Well, young people haven't been active as citizens in the past. In the last 2 presidential elections, actually, young people's participation has gone down.
However, Dupuis is optimistic that internet sites like votershutup.org could empower young minorities in a totally new way.
I think, the students and the young people today really do relate to messages from websites, and having a forum for exchange of dialogues, exchange of views, really voicing their opinion and reaching out to the candidates as well could be very successful on the internet.
Thomas is counting on those interactive advantages of the internet to attract Central Florida's young minorities to his website. And as he plans to teach his students and website visitors, if you don't get educated on the issues, you'll be left out of the political discussion. In other words, vote or shut up. Now to talk about the challenges of bringing young minorities to the political table and other issues, we're joined by Diane Ware. She's a part of a voter advocacy group called Orlando Acorn. Seminole County's Supervisor Elections Michael Ertel also joins us. Thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Michael, let's begin with you. We're very familiar with the efforts on a national scale, Rock the Vote, Vote or Die for young voters. Do they work?
Anything that gets people excited about the process of going to the polls and initially just registering to vote, they work. They work because they get folks, once you're registered to vote, it becomes a hobby, it becomes a habit. Then you feel as if you're involved in the process. And once you feel involved in the process, you're more likely to actually go and vote.
But we didn't see the huge jumps in the 2004 election, especially for the presidential election. We didn't see the huge numbers. So to get them in the habit is one thing, but it was troublesome to get them there, was it not?
It's up to everybody to go out and decide to vote on their own. So sometimes folks get excited about registering to vote, and then it's really up to the candidates to get them excited about going to the polls and voting for them or against their opponent.
Diane, what are the challenges that young minority voters are facing in Central Florida?
One of the challenges that young minority voters are facing is voter ID. You know, that they're requiring to have ID. If you don't have your ID, you can't vote. Or if you do register early and by chance you have a hyphenated name, what's been happening, the system is flawed. It's been kicking out people's names, and there's been no way that they've been notified that this is happening to them so that they can make the proper corrections before the day of voting. Usually they get down there and they find out that they cannot vote.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually. Let's talk about the NAACP's lawsuit against the state of Florida. Right now, the state is appealing a federal judge's decision that requires Florida's elections officials to hold off implementing a part of a controversial new law, as you just mentioned, Diane. The law would require the state to match voter registration information to driver's license or social security number databases. If the registration information didn't match the databases, the voter was essentially disqualified from voting. That's on hold for now, though, because the NAACP's lawsuit, but litigation so close to the primary election has some impacts on our local election offices. And Michael, you're very familiar with that. How difficult is it that it's coming so close to the election day? They have until January 25th to make a decision?
Election day is January 29th.
4 days later.
They had until December 29th to register to vote. Folks had to register to vote. And, you know, part of the lawsuit is we're always going to be cautious in the to the favor of the voter. So a lot of what has happened, the NAACP filed a lawsuit against the state saying that if somebody has a driver's license, that when they fill out their application, they put the license information wrong, or they hyphenate their name one way, and somebody entering the information hyphenates it a different way.
Right.
So with that, a lot of folks were getting sent letters saying, you know, your name is different on the application as what we have on the driver's license. Can you verify for us? That process takes time. We don't have time.
Yeah.
So we're erring on the side of the voter, allowing them to go ahead and get registered.
And I want to find out in just a moment about the changes you're facing in Seminole County. But Diane, first, let's talk about whether or not this could disenfranchise young voters. Is this something that makes young minorities skeptical?
Oh,
the
yes.
process?
Oh, yes, definitely. In fact, there's been studies done, like for the state of Indiana, that more than 22% of young, poor, black, and minority, and elderly people do not have IDs.
And I do want to emphasize that this juncture, the law itself is not in place. Isn't that correct?
Right now, everything's sort of in abeyance. It's all, if somebody registers to vote and they put a driver's license number, we don't actually now, for present time, we can't verify it because the law, which in the past would say, let's verify to make sure that that's who that is. And it's not just driver's license, it's also last four with the Social Security number.
Right.
They
And
can
these
use that as
are
well.
the changes you're facing in Seminole County.
Throughout the state of Florida.
What are you facing specifically right now? What are your challenges personally?
Well, our personal challenges are mostly just making sure that the election is run fairly and that everybody feels as if the election is run fairly and that their vote is going to be counted. So a lot of the process involved with that is making sure that folks feel that, once they register to vote, that they are registered to vote. So they fill out the form that they are registered to vote. It's a responsibility of every voter, every potential voter, to fill out the form correctly. It's our responsibility to make sure that we process it correctly. So in this very shortened period of time while the lawsuit is taking place and we have a presidential preference primary coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to go ahead and just err on the side of the voter.
It's a very busy season. I wish the best of luck to both of you. Thank you very much, Mike Curlotto, Diane Ware. We do appreciate your time. Thank you very much. For those of you at home, be sure not to miss any of our in-depth local news programs. If you have a digital video recorder or TiVo, grab your remote now and choose the option Record. This entire series. For more detailed instructions, log on to WMFE.org/thisweek. And while you're there, you can also watch previous episodes of our program and sign up for our video podcast. That's on WMFE.org/thisweek. That's our program for tonight. We'll see you next time. Missed an episode of This Week? Go to WMFE.org/thisweek and watch the entire series anytime, day or night. And while you're there, be sure to shoot us an email. Tell us what you think about the program. You can also sign up for our podcast. All the This Week you want, when you want it, at your fingertips.